This is Rad Drew. I just got back from Cuba. It's the first time I've been since 2020 and the pandemic, and I was just delighted to find that we're going to be able to resume our trips there and photograph in Cuba again, and I'm just really excited about that. What I wanted to share with you today, half the fun of this trip is to come home with images that we can play with and process after. And, most of you know I enjoy stylizing my images considerably, and I want to share with you one of the ways that I've used the features of the iPhone and the latest operating system to take advantage of one of those features to allow us to take a subject out of an image and work with it. And what I want to do here, I'll show you what I'm going to do. Let's go back here, go up here to my tools. Here's an image that I made of one of the dancers in the streets of Old Havana, and much of what we did with on this trip was to use big cameras with remote flash. But for this image, I used my iPhone 14 Pro Max without a flash, but then I processed it in such a way to really kind of make the dancer stand out. And I like this image a lot. I mean, I think it's really shows the context and everything. But what I really wanted to emphasize, look at the form of this dancer. I mean, the beautiful lines of her torso and her limbs, and just the way everything is kind of lined up and that wonderful curve. And so one of the things that we're able to do now with our phone, I'm in my camera roll, right? I'm looking at my phone, and this is not just an iPhone 14 feature. This is something that I think you can get this to work with phones, any of the phones. I've tried it with the 10 and up, but it's an iOS operating system update. And one of what you can do is simply put your finger on the subject, and it will copy that subject and allow you to paste it into other things. So watch this. I'm just going to take my finger and press it on the dancer. And look, did you see that lightning bolt that sort of happened? You can see right now the line is kind of moving around the figure. And I can either copy that and paste it somewhere else, or I can share it. And what I'm going to do is choose to share it. So tap share, and I'm going to come down here where it says save image, and I'll save my image. And now if I go back and look in the camera roll, all the way back out, there is our image, copied without a background. It just lifted her right out, and look how beautifully it did. Now notice up there at the top, it missed a little bit above her hands, and there's a little place around her heel there where there's a little bit of blue, but I mean the rest of that is really perfect. And I'm not worried about those places that it missed, because we'll fix that in a second. So what I wanted to do with this, I love this form, and I wanted to really showcase the form. So what I want to do is put it onto a texture. Now, many of you use textures already. I know some of my favorites are from Distressed FX. Cheryl Tarrant makes a number of wonderful ones. We're going to use one of those today. Flypaper is another. I'll put a list of the different textures that I appreciate in the description on the YouTube page here, and you can take a look at those. For Flypaper, I actually have a discount code you can use to get a little bit off. So what I'm going to do now is use the app Image Blender. It's right up here in the upper left. It's the red and white tool. It's been around forever. I'm sure many of you have already used it. I'm going to tap and open it up, and let me go ahead and clear this out. Let me see here. Okay. And okay, so what I'm going to do, so this is the interface for Image Blender. You have a little icon, a gray icon on the bottom and left. That's where you're going to put your images. So the first thing I'm going to do is tap on the bottom box, and I'm going to go to my photos. And for this, I'm going to go out to my albums here, and I have an album that I've created. You notice here my Flypaper textures are down here, and then I have this one called Distressed FX textures, and I'm going to tap on that. And now within here, I'm going to choose one of these textures. I kind of like this one right here for this. I'll tap on it, and it's going to load that texture into this image. Now I chose a portrait orientation, or aspect ratio for this, because the dancer's kind of in that shape. I could have probably chosen square too, but that's what I've done. So now I'm going to go get the dancer. I'm going to tap on this side, go to photos, And there's my dancer that I want to get. I'm going to tap right there, and boom, I popped her right into this frame. Now, what I want to do, I want to arrange. So I'll go back here. The arrange icon is the one up here with the two arrows crossing. Tap on that, and now I can size her and move her around and position her in the frame where I want her. So I want her to fill the frame. So I'm going to kind of get her right, maybe right about there. And I'll go ahead and save. And now you notice we had this little place here where it didn't quite get the mask right, and over here by her heel. So what I'm going to do now, one of the things you can do in Blender is do masking. So what I'm going to do is tap the pencil up here, the mask icon, and I'm going to zoom in on that area around her hand, and I'm simply going to paint over it. Now, to switch this back and forth, there's a pencil down here. If I tap the pencil at the bottom, now it's pointing up, but if I point it down, then I can paste back in what I've erased. But I want to erase that, that back layer. So I'm just going to take my finger here, and I'm just going really quick, but you can see you can zoom in very close and really do a nice job. And again, I'm going very fast for this, but you might take a little more time. You can also use a stylus, and it can help you a little bit, but I find my finger does a pretty good job. And I'm pretty used to doing that. So, but, you know, consider a stylus if you find this challenging and tedious. So then we're going to come down here. I'm going to get this little area right here by her wrist. And I'm not going to worry about some of those other places. But there is this little white spot right here, which I think is a distraction. So I'm going to remove that. And then I looked at the rest of everything. I don't see anything except over here by her heel. And there's a little place that got missed. And I'm just going to paint that in. And there we go. Maybe a little bit by her heel there. And there, look at that. I mean, that's pretty gorgeous. And so now I'm going to save that mask, edit, and now we're back to the home page in Blender. Look at that. Now, you notice the sliders over here on the right. If I take it to the left, I'm seeing all of the texture, and I'm taking it to the right. And you can play around. Sometimes you might want to do a different opacity and let some of the texture show through. But if not, you can go all the way up and have the dancer be very prominent. The other thing you can do in Image Blender, if you swipe up, or you can also hit the those two little overlapping squares at the top, and you get the blend mode. So right now we're in the normal blend mode, but you can go through these, and you might check with your image to see if there's any of these others that you find you know, interesting. There's multiply, screen, overlay. Overlay is kind of interesting in that it's actually letting the texture overlay the body of the dancer. So I don't know, I'm not sure I want that for this, but you might for some. And then I'll go through, there's darken, there's a whole bunch of different ones, and you can experiment with these. Hard light is kind of good, I like that. And then you can always come down and play with the opacity of that look, so you can play with that too. So just, you know, explore these blend modes and see, you know, see if there's something that floats your boat. I'm going to go back for this one to normal. I think that gives us the most contrast between that background. Now, if you look closely, yeah, there's a lot of texture in that background, and that's looking pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and save that out to my camera roll. And let's take a look. Come on, there you are. Look at that. I mean, that's really cool, I think. And we got the heel fixed, and now we've got her on that background. And we could be done at this point if we wanted to. But one of the things that I like to do is play with that background and that subject a little bit more. And one of the best ways that I've found to do that is to use Lightroom Mobile for the iPhone. So what I'm going to do, I'm in my camera roll, I'm looking at that image, and I'm going to tap the share icon down here, and I'm going to choose Lightroom right here. I have it in my tray. Tap Lightroom, and I'm going to say, let's launch it right now and do this image. And when I do, I'm in recently added here, and there's the image. I just added it to Lightroom. Now, one of the things that I might do here, I know I've already processed this, but I'm going to hit an auto adjustment, and I kind of like what it just did. There's before and there's after, just a tiny little tweak to it. But that's not really what I'm here for. What I want to do is go to the masking tool over here on the far left. If you have not experienced the masking tool in Lightroom, you are in for a treat. It's really cool. Watch this. What I want to do is select my dancer. So I'm going to come up, tap the plus sign, and I get all these different options to create a mask. I'm going to choose select subject. When I do, look at that beautiful mask. I mean, it just completely got her perfectly. Now, anything I do while she's highlighted, I can adjust the exposure of her. I can adjust the contrast, which is kind of bringing up the brights and darkening the blacks a little bit, which I kind of like that. Something just a little bit like that. I could darken the shadows a little bit more, bring out the blue in her jeans. I could also go to color, and if I wanted, I don't know that I need to, but I could saturate the heck out of that if I wanted. I've got all these different options on how I want to work with that. And so that's looking pretty good to me. I want to be careful that I haven't blown out those highlights. So if I go back to my lights here, I can always come in here and drop my highlights. Look at that. See how just dropping those highlights a little bit brings back some of the detail in her slippers. And that looks pretty good. But now I want to do this again. I'm going to tap here on the right here, and I'm going to hit the plus sign again, and I'm going to select the subject one more time. But this time I'm going to invert it. So I'm going to tap the invert button over here, and now the background is selected. So now any of the adjustments I make are going to affect only the background. So I could go to light, and I could drop the exposure down so that she becomes more figural in it if I wanted. I could play with the contrast back there, darkening the darks and brightening the brights a little. I could drop the highlights down or lift them up. I could drop the shadows so that I'm darkening that. So all these different things you can do. You can work with your white and black. But then also I could come to color, and I could drop the saturation completely out and have a black and white background. Or I could bring it up and really intensify. But I don't really want to draw a lot of attention to the background. So I'm going to kind of keep it sort of muted in tone. But then I can go to effects. And effects is where you're going to add some detail and structure to things. If I increase the texture, let me zoom in on that. If I increase the texture, you can see how I'm bringing up the kind of the grit of that background. And that may be a look you want to go for. You can do increased clarity as well. And you can see how it affects and really brings out the background. But the other thing you can do is drop that the other direction, take your texture down, and now you've created kind of a very blurred background, and she then is sharp and figural on the background that you have. Very cool way to display this. Now I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark to commit to that change, and now there's our image, and there's where we started with it, and there's where we are now, and she's just really popping off that page. Now, if I'm ready to save it, I'll go to the share icon up here and choose export to camera roll, and so on. Now, I know I've gone through a lot of this. If you haven't used Lightroom before, I've got a couple of tutorials available. I'll include a link in the description here so that you can access those if you want. They're moderately priced. Some of them are 60 to 90 minutes long. They go into a lot of the details of how to do some of these things more thoroughly. So that's it for now. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoy this process, and I look forward to seeing what you do with it. Until next time, keep on creating.